There are fewer than 30 men in the world qualified to drive Formula One. A mere half dozen, perhaps, to win. At this moment, I'm inclined to think you're not one of them.
You know you want to. Keep up the good work, and there you have it. There you go.
Welcome to F1Weekly.com. My name is Clark Rogers. I'm the host of the program. I'll be joined by Nasir Hamid, my co-host. This is podcast number 1051, July 9th, 2024, Nasir.
Thank you, sir. I say, oh dear, the Bismarck has made a successful U-turn and the long-awaited Blitzkrieg has begun. 9 is the loneliest number, and I had a doctor's appointment today in Graz. Lots of smiles. We shall explain very gladly. Back to you, sir, the De Gaulle of podcasting.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. On today's program, LCH does it? Fernando does not. Nasir wins. Was the British Grand Prix simply too British? Sergio Perez, where are you? Brad Pitt's F1 film is about Brad Pitt wanting to be an F1 driver.com. And this week's interview, we've got Anders Hultqvist. From 1992 to 93, he was the Swedish Camaro Champion. Very exciting. And just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we do need those contributions, as small or large as possible, to keep this program alive and on fire. So please click on the Support F1 Weekly tab. You know you want to. I was thinking about Nasir Hamid when Lewis was on the podium waving to the people, and I was thinking, man, you must be one happy camper. Everything is going well for England. Lewis is on top. England is playing the Dutch tomorrow for the finals in the Euro Cup. Nas, welcome to the studio. How are you doing?
I am doing very good, sir. Thank you. And I have to say greetings and racing regards from Schlossberg Hotel, owned and operated by Dr. Helmut Marko. You know, he owns 4 hotels in this town. I met him this morning at 9 a.m. and his office is right across the hotel. This was interesting, Mr. Rogers. His first question to me was, what is your ethnic background? And I was going to say Norway or North Korea, but since I had not even asked a single question, I thought good idea would be just to keep it real. But, you know, he was very nice and he was kind enough to agree to a 20-minute session. But as soon, you know, the problem this day and age, even with juniors in Formula 4, when you do an interview, especially if they are in the, junior program of any racing team, and most of the good ones are, the press person also sits with you. And of course, they keep an eye on what you're saying, and you don't go beyond the time given to you. So what happened, I was taken to his office by his secretary, Miss Vicky Katnick, and then she left the room, and as soon as she did that, I said, "Yawol, this may go to another 5-10 minutes." When it was over, we had 50 minutes of wonderful stories from Dr. Marko. You know, he went to see his first Formula One race in 1961 at the Nürburgring with his school friend Jochen Rindt. And next week, we will post this interview as a special Dr. Marko podcast. And we talked about a lot of things, Montoya, Targa Florio, Max, Sebastian, Ford. And only person who did not come up in the conversation was Fernando Alonso. And I have to say, Dr. Marko is a funny guy, because I asked him about a couple of things that I had seen on YouTube from his ex-drivers, and he was a good sport about it. And this is one example. Here he is talking about one of his young drivers who raced for him in Formula 3000, then went on to win Formula One races for a couple of teams. When you had your Formula 3000 team, one of your drivers was Juan Pablo Montoya. Was he a hot potato, difficult to handle and manage? And how good was his son Sebastian, who was also in your program?
Juan Pablo, he came here to Graz. The first thing he told me that which McDonald's of the four, I didn't know that we have 4 McDonald's in Graz, is the best. So his sort of food was unhealthy. He was a lazy bastard.
Lazy bastard?
Yeah. But he was unbelievable fast.
Yes.
Unbelievable fast. And he did so many stupid mistakes. You know, we were leading in trucks. No, I was the first race in England, I can't remember. We were leading in Finland, and he crashed. So that's similar to his son, but his son is crashing not in the front, he is crashing more in the top 10 and so on. So we had a hard time with him. For quite a lot of times we didn't even talk to each other. But now we are good friends, and he wasted his talent. He could have been multiple world champion.
Yeah.
His son, unfortunately, doesn't have this ultimate speed like Juan Pablo, but he compensates it with crashes. He's nearly every race, unfortunately.
Gracias, Señor Montoya.
Now let's go to Silverstone, the birthplace of Formula One racing, and what a great race we had with some awesome performances from several drivers, not just Lewis Hamilton. But first, let's do a quickie on Collie. Mercedes on pole, it had to happen. George was the man. Russell becomes only the 9th British driver to earn pole position for his home Grand Prix. And what a shocker, no Red Bull on the front row. In fact, it was all bangers and mash, as LCH was second fastest in Collie. Sir, what did you make of the front row?
Well, I think we anticipated this happening. They were looking stronger, and George's pole on the previous race was a large hint and arrow pointing right to Toto Wolff's head. I had a funny feeling that everybody was in a really good mood, and it was going to happen. You could just feel it. It was in the air, and all I could think about was kidney pudding.
There you go. Now, this was the first British front row lockout since Silverstone 1977, when James Hunt and John Watson shared the front row. Lando Norris qualified on second, and I had a very strong feeling he will win the race. And he was sharing row 2 with his BFF from Austria, from the Austrian Grand Prix, I should say, Max Verstappen. We have to go back all the way to Aintree to find the last time British drivers were top 3 on the grid. We are talking Jim Clark, John Surtees, and Innes Ireland back then. Oscar Piastri shared row 3 with a very impressive Nico Hülkenberg. In case anyone is wondering, and I wonder why they would be wondering about Max's teammate and how he performed in Collie, he was out in Q1 and 19th on the grid, which was really not very impressive. Now, the changing weather for the race, I had no idea what was going to happen. But perfect start for the Silver Arrows. They were shooting ahead with Russell leading. Max got the jump on Lando right away, and it was obvious he meant business, but that goes without saying when it comes to Max in a race, especially when he's behind any driver, let alone Lewis Hamilton. Surprise in the early laps for me was Russell had pulled out of DRS range of Hamilton, and Hamilton had pulled out of the DRS range of Max. What were your thoughts? Which way were they going, sir, in terms of who will win the race, or was it too early for you?
Well, it was exciting. It was a great start for the Mercedes. George, sometimes I've noticed there's a pattern. He peaks too early. But they both had a great start, and of course, Max settling it really quickly with Norris. Young man, I am the machismo. So that was wonderful. It's great to watch Mercedes surging back to the front at the British Grand Prix because, it was nauseating for moi. But I can actually put myself in people's other shoes, and I could tell if you were a Brit, there was a lot of happy people there. So it was interesting. It was too much for me. And of course, Fernando now competing with Haas is troublesome.
Yes, and at this stage, top 10 runners were all on medium tires. The rain, which never happens in England, was expected to fall sometime during the race. After a dozen laps, the drivers were advised raindrops will start falling on your helmet soon, and top 5 were Russell, Hamilton, Max, Norris, Piastri, followed by the 2 Ferraris of Sainz Jr. and Leclerc. And Hulkenberg was still hanging in the top 10 in ninth. And I have to say this, and I hate to say this, we don't know what was going on with the weather. It's coming in 5 minutes, it will slow down in 10 minutes, it will increase in 20 minutes. And when all these messages were coming and commentators were going about with their own prediction, looking outside the window, I just had an inkling that this is going to be very, very troublesome for Scuderia Ferrari. But more on that later. First big change among the top 5 came on lap 15 when Lando took third from Max. Needless to say, the crowd was elated. Pretty soon Lando was pulling away from Max and Piastri was closing in on Max. The papaya were peeling fast laps. And I was convinced at this stage that Lando Norris will win the British Grand Prix. On lap 17, Piastri gave Max a dingo bite and passed him for fourth. And that was pretty impressive. He's still looking for his first win, Grand Prix win, I should say. So I'm rooting for Mr. Piastri. Race coming alive on lap 18 as LCH was hounding his teammate and passed him to take the lead. Now, when Lewis took the lead, obviously a little bit of rain was falling. Did you think it was like a fair and square changeover? Or did you suspect something going on with Russell's car?
No, I thought it was fair. I mean, he is still LCH, an older LCH, but yet still machismo. So, no, I thought everything was normal. I figured Lewis Hamilton would definitely pass George. And you got to admit that the Mercedes were quick, and the Red Bull wasn't. So, it's now all Mercedes power. And what's freaking Fernando out is all of a sudden we got McLaren, Mercedes back in there. And Honda, Max says, they're not that fast anymore. With Aston Martin getting Honda next year, Mercedes has an opening. They can throw their engine into a French car, which is there's so much blasphemy there. But no, I thought the start was beautiful. It was elegant. And the rain coming, and they came lightly, so it separates the girls from the boys really quickly. So no, I thought it was a fun race so far.
Well, German influence in a French team will remind you, fellow Francais people, of the wonderful days of 1940s, They've had some good action there. And, it's looking more and more likely that it may happen because Toto has said they are open-minded to supplying Alpine with an engine. It may be bad something else. Your man, your hombre, your Dios, Fernando Alonso deserve a competitive car so he can win races. And I'm rooting for that also. Okay, Lewis Hamilton leading the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Who could ask for anything more, at least as far as the local attendants were concerned? Russell was demoted to third by Norris and the rain was now falling. DRS was disabled because of low grip conditions. Lap 20, we have another lead change as Lando passes LCH, and this confirmed to me that we're going to have a papaya win, maybe a 1-2. Before the lap was over, it was a papaya 1-2, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, and Max making up the top 5. Now this was, I think, the turning point of the race for many drivers, especially Lewis and Norris. The team asked LCH if he wanted to change to Inters. He responded no, and this could have been the best no he ever said. The numero dos at Red Bull, Checo, went from being a barbecue iguana in Tijuana to their guinea pig. They put him on Inters and he used some flowery language, which I won't say here, but he said it's too dry, man. I think they were using him to see if it would be a good idea to put Max on Inters. So Checo is getting the shaft on both sides, A and B. He and Leclerc, who was also on Inters thanks to Ferrari's wisdom, and this is what I was referring to earlier, they were 12 seconds slower per lap compared to cars on medium, waiting for the rain to return. On lap 24 of 52, Max was 4 seconds behind Russell in fourth, and DRS was enabled again. Now this was interesting. By lap 26, half distance, Max was over second behind George, which was kind of a surprise. Lap 27, Max in for tire change to inters. Next lap, Lando, Lewis, and George in. Following lap, Piastri in. On lap 30 of 52, top 5, Norris, Hamilton, Max, Russell, and Sainz, all on inters. But by now, almost all the runners were on inters. On lap 34, we had a broken silver arrow. Russell was told to retire the car. There was a leak in the cooling system. Now all the heat was on LCH to make things happen for Toto. Sir Hamilton started to pump up the volume on Lando Norris and closed the gap from 3 seconds to 2 seconds by lap 36 of 52. And Toto started to become Hans Christian Andersen for a day to write his own fairy tale. But not so fast. The Patrick McGowan of performance was still in the race and only 7.5 seconds behind LCH. You can never count out Max till he takes the checkered flag, or he has a done blowed up. He is not only the most interesting man in the world, but also the biggest danger man in Formula One. The Brits battling for the British Grand Prix glory, I thought we may have a repeat of Red Bull Ring, and third man on the track wins the race, meaning Max, and how wonderful that would have been. This was getting serious meatball marinara, and somebody was going to end up with a side order of garlic bread. Lap 39, Lewis and Max in the pits. The papaya people think they know best, and both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri stayed out. And as it turned out, very bad decision. Now I was very, very surprised. LCH came out on soft with very few laps remaining, and Max came out on hard tires. I just could not understand this philosophy. But, if there were 30 laps remaining, I will understand. But what did you make of this situation, sir?
I thought it was a little bizarre, but yet Max could have actually requested the hard tires, and I thought about that, and I said, well, he knows better than I do.
Yes, Norris in on the following lap, 4.5 second pit stop, put the other Brit on top. Max was 6.5 seconds behind race leader, your favorite, Lewis Carl Hamilton. But Mr. Rogers, we see it in Formula One, NBA, NFL, and other sports, top-line sports. When the heat is on, the game is on with the top dogs. And the Piranha Pool in Formula One has nothing but the best of junkyard dogs, straight from El Segundo. With 5 laps to go, Max was moving in on Norris and was less than 4 seconds behind Hamilton. And I really thought that now we're going to have a last lap dash for cash between Max and Lewis. Not sure how he could go so fast on hard tires with Lando on soft, but lap 48, Max said bye-bye to Lando, another tradition started by your hombre machismo. Now it was a case of, hello, is it me you're looking for in your rearview mirror? 3 laps to go, difference between Lewis and Max was 3.2. The clash of the Titans had happened at Silverstone before. This time I think Max ran out of time, but it was an incredible performance from Lewis, equally impressive from Max, and if McLaren had been sharp in their pit stop strategy, it could have been a 1-2 for Zach Brown and company. Piastri posted the fastest lap in the end, and let's listen to the happy and emotional winner, Mr. Lewis Hamilton.
I think ultimately because it's been such a long time, it's been 946 days or something like that since the last win. And, really challenging, difficult time, obviously 2021, and then coming back in with a car that we've not been able to fight with for the last couple of years. I think just it's been incredibly mentally challenging, I think, for everyone in the team. But I think just knowing how hard everyone's continued to work, knowing how I've managed just to keep my head in it, and then with everything that's happened this year as well, with so many emotions this year. Obviously announcing that I'm leaving, and at the same time starting with a car that we didn't feel like we could win with, to then finally be in the place where we win. And not only that, but at the British Grand Prix in front of my home crowd, it's the most incredible honour to be standing on the top of the podium and hearing the national anthem with the King's name in it, for example. It's the first time I've had that. So, and then also my family's here. I mean, the car's so loud, so hard to hear, but I could see it, and I really could feel it.
So, sir, what was your final analysis of the race in the last 10 laps?
It was very exciting, and Max, he's very good with the psychological warfare as well. Max passing Lando when Lando was on softs, and Lando saw that he was on hards. That's just the extra twist of the dagger. So it's going to be fascinating. And the best part is Holland plays England tomorrow. I cannot wait to watch this. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, in an hour, France plays España, Los Machismos. So, my goodness, there's just so much good stuff happening, Nasir.
Yes, absolutely. Now, they say numbers don't lie. Lewis Carl Hamilton now has 104 Grand Prix victories. Lockheed once upon a time had a fighter plane called F104. The name of this plane was Starfighter. And that's what Toto has, at least till the end of the season, a Starfighter. Now, you may know this, the Lockheed Starfighter was an interceptor, so is Lewis. Because back in 2007, you have forgotten this, so I'm just going to remind you. Back in 2007, he intercepted somebody at the 1-yard line, and that hombre could not get in a championship. That's what I'm talking about. But wait, there's more history. This was his victory number 9 at Silverstone, which is a new track record. Previously, he was tied with 8 wins. I think he had 8 at Silverstone and also at the Hungaroring. And Michael Schumacher also had 8 wins, so he's now all by himself. And they were right, lonely at the top. Now, seeing Lewis embracing his papito was very, very interesting. Here is a dad and kid who came from nothing. Anthony Hamilton worked 3 jobs to keep his kid in racing, and here we are today. From the shades of silver to the brightness of red color, let's hope championship number 8 comes in our lifetime. After seeing this performance, Mr. Rogers, do you think we may see Lewis world champion in a red car?
It's interesting, but that decision to go to Mercedes in 2014 still pays dividends. So once again, the decision, I'm telling you, he may miss the sauerkraut and bratwurst when he gets to Ferrari after a few months. We'll see how it goes, but fascinating, and I'm happy he's getting some more wins before he leaves the team. And of course, being in England was apropos.
I'll tell you something. When he was brought into Mercedes, Niki Lauda was one of the biggest motivator for him to leave McLaren, okay? And Ross Brown too. And I will say this, if you're being courted by such high-level people, not just a team manager, then they're going to listen to you and let you run your show as much as you can. Same thing is happening with him now, that he's going to Ferrari at the invitation of John Elkann, the CEO of the parent company of Ferrari. So I don't think he's going to be taking orders from anybody in the team, and he will probably run his show, which is all geared about winning in races and championship. And it has to, it really boils down, same for all the drivers, Max, Lewis, and Fernando. If the package is right, then he's galloping to wins after wins. And I will be a very happy hombre if I see him, or even Max, if he gets 8 wins or 100 Grand Prix wins, or even if Alonso gets his 3rd championship. I'm a race fan, so I'm looking forward to these exciting times. Now, speaking of Max, he finishes 2nd and increases his lead in the championship, which is now 255 points to 171 for Norris. Leclerc is 3rd on 150. Max's teammate Perez is 6th in the championship with 118 points, less than half of his teammate. Now, according to Dr. Marko in our chat today, he said every F1 contract has a performance clause. Liam Lawson is testing at Silverstone this week, and if he does well, Checo's dishes will be done. Just drive the car was a request from Christian Horner. We all know finishing second or third in a race won by Max is no shame, but hard to do this when you are out in Q1. This is what Max had to say on his bad hair day when he was second by just 1 second. Take a listen.
Yeah, the beginning was not very good. I mean, I tried to keep up, but I just ran out of tires. I mean, everything was running hot and just struggled for grip. So then Lando got by, then Oscar got by. It started to rain. I had no grip as well there. I didn't want to take too much risk as well because it didn't feel good. It didn't feel comfortable. So I was like, I'll just sit here and try to survive. And yeah, that's what I did. Then at one point, even Carlos rocked up at the party. So I was like, Jesus, really bad afternoon. But then, yeah, we just kept it on track, made the right calls from the slick to the inter, and then from the inter back to the slick tire, which just basically kept me in contention, really. I mean, by making the right calls today, we were there at the right time, and to the end with the hard tire, that was the right call for us, definitely. So we could push on the tire because the medium already wasn't good enough for us. So to the end, to go flat out on the hard was the best we could do, and we finished second. So at one point, it was looking like P5 or P6 even. So yeah, on a poor afternoon, I would say, in terms of performance, to be second, I take that.
Now we come to third man on the podium, Lando Norris. You know, his trials and tribulations remind me of how many, many years Nigel Mansell suffered in his career before becoming world champion. And also is another fellow Brit, Jenson Button, better known as JB. You know, this was his 7th podium of the year from 12 races so far, which includes his famous maiden win in Miami. And I think one of these days McLaren will get everything A-OK and Lando will become a winning machine. Right now we have some finger pointing going on. Let's take a listen to Mr. Norris.
I've heard that a lot lately, so I hate saying it again, but yeah, I mean, so many things were going well. Yeah, we threw it away in the final stop, so one lap, but also I don't think it was a lap. I think even if I boxed on the perfect lap, our decision to go onto the softs was the wrong one. I think Lewis still would have won no matter what. So two calls from our side cost us everything today. So pretty, especially here, pretty disappointing.
So, Mr. Rogers, do you see more wins for Mercedes and McLaren? I mean, we all know Red Bull is going to win quite a few races, but as far as Mercedes and McLaren and maybe Ferrari will surprise us again. What say you?
Well, I think McLaren's biggest problem is they're not used to winning. And you do have to practice that. Toto and Mercedes know how to win. And now, apparently, they found that secret je ne sais quoi. And they're going to double on the upgrades for the upcoming races. So I think Lewis Hamilton is going to be on pole maybe next race, and it's going to be, and George is very quick in the Mercedes. So I don't know. It's interesting now that Mercedes is super competitive. I think they could take it all the way to the end of the season. Now I think Max has got too big of a drivers' championship points lead to be taken, because now Max needs to play the mind game and just finish third, finish second, because obviously something's happened to the Red Bull and its management of tires and everything else. Not sure what's going on, but it definitely is killing Perez. For Perez to go from a winning driver to out of Q1 often now, that car has changed, and Max, of course, is Max, and he can make anything go fast, including lawnmowers. But something interesting at Red Bull, especially now that Newey is gone. Has there been sabotage?
Oh, the white powder?
Thank you.
Oh, you know, I'm surprised that did not come up in our conversation when I was talking to Dr. Marko. But, you know, that's the way it goes. I think there will be more wins. I'm pretty sure there'll be more wins for McLaren and, of course, for Max. Mercedes has won 2 races in a row now, but the last one was, you know, 2 people collided and it was the Cowie win. But a win is a win. So maybe they'll get a win or 2 But I'm glad that Lewis got one. First Grand Prix win for him since Saudi Arabia 2021. So that is very good. And really looking forward to the second half of the season. Some heads may roll.
Oh, yes. Heads are going to roll. I don't know. And there's young people that these are opportunities for these young drivers. So I'm all good with all of this. If you can't perform, get out of the kitchen, as they say. So keep up the good work, Nasir. Outstanding. Why don't we take a quick break? And we'll be back after these brief messages.
Hi, I'm Juan Pablo Montoya, and you're listening to F1 Weekly.
Welcome back to F1Weekly.com. Clark Rogers here, your host. And now, as we spin the globe and go around the world with Motorsports Mondial, with the king, the Sultan himself, Nasir Hamid.
Thank you, sir. This European trip, again, started with a trip to Örebro, which is an hour or so away from, a couple of hours, I should say, from Stockholm. And I was invited by this gentleman, Anders Hultqvist, who earlier in the year was kind enough to take me to meet Ronnie Peterson's brother, Tommy. And at that time, he had told me that they're going to have a historical festival racing cars at a track called Karlskoga, which is not too far from Örebro. And he invited me to that, but because of my nephew getting married, I could not go there. So I mentioned, I can come in July because I was planning a trip here. And he said, if you do, I'll take you to Karlskoga and give you a couple of laps in my McLaren 570. And, I was not going to refuse that offer. So we had this conversation with him. He was a rallycross driver, a Camaro Cup champion, and of course, a racing, very passionate fan of motor racing like all of us. And he did take me to Karlskoga, and I got to tell you, Mr. Rogers, I was scared because I looked at the speedometer and it was 225 kilometers per hour, and I have never been so fast in a car. And this McLaren is very, very impressive. So kudos to Mr. Ron Dennis for creating this machine. As he was driving very fast, too fast for my taste, I was looking around and I said, there is a lot of runoff area. So if something goes wrong, I think I will see another sunrise. And which I had also requested Anders that, I want to see another sunrise before we go on a super fast mission. So it's a very impressive car. The track is very nice. And I want to thank Anders very much one more time. So please enjoy this conversation, and we shall return with more motor racing. Okay, folks, I'm here at the Karlskoga track where Ronnie Peterson got his competition license with Mr. Anders Hultqvist. Sir, thank you so much for this fast ride. I have never been so fast in a car. Will you please tell our listeners what's the fastest speed you clocked in your beautiful McLaren 570?
During these laps, the top speed was 225 kilometers. If the straight would have been longer, we could have reached 330.
Well, I'm glad we are not at Paul Ricard. And I don't know if you know this, but your passenger was freaking out. But I'm happy to be alive. Okay, sir, you are a lifelong racing fan and Swedish Camaro Cup champion. Tell us how you got the racing bug and how old were you?
I started with go-kart when I was 14, but I think the interest of engines and mechanics was earlier, and I was about 12. I found an old moped in the woods who I brought home and started to work with, and fired it up suddenly, and there started my interest for engines and racing.
And how long did you race in go-karts before you moved into racing cars?
I started when I was 14, and I got my driver's license when I was 18, and then I started with rally. I sold the go-kart and started with rally.
Now, you won the Swedish Camaro Cup more than once. How many races were there in a season, and what were your best races or moments you remember most?
There was, I think we were driving 10 or 11 races per year, and I was driving from 89 to 93. And I won the cup in 92 and 93. We were in Finland in a racetrack called Camaro. And that's a race that I remember because in Sweden it's very important with silencers on the cars. They won't allow us to drive without silencers. But in Finland the clerk of the course came and looked at the back of my car and said, "What is it you have there?" "Oh, that's a silencer." I said, "Can you remove it?" And we did. Everyone in the Camaro Cup, we were 28 drivers, remove their silencers, and that's something I remember when we were driving without silencers.
Now, there was a Swedish driver who made it to Formula One, and what did you tell him when you met him? I'm talking about Reine Wissel.
I met Reine Wissel at home at Ronnie's brother Tommy. We had a party there, and he was driving Camaro Cup before I started. He was driving the Camaro Cup in the 70s and in the beginning of the 80s, I think. And I said to him, "Do you know, Reine, I done something that you haven't." "Oh, what's that?" he said. "I won the Camaro Cup twice." "Oh, you did?" he said, and he was a bit. He didn't know who I was, but he learned that.
Yes, and he never won the Camaro Cup.
No, he won a couple of races, but not the whole series.
Okay. Now, any drivers you raced against in the Camaro Cup who later went on to race internationally that our listeners might know of?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
As far as I know, at least.
Quite a few racing tracks in Sweden. Which one is your favorite?
I think this, where we were driving right now at Karlskoga, is one of the funniest to drive. But Anderstorp and Mantorp is bigger courses and faster. For this McLaren, as we were driving in now, this track is a little bit too small, I think.
Now, Swedish Grand Prix, which used to be at Anderstorp, produced some great moments. Ronnie Peterson dominated the first race there in 73, only to have a puncture late in the race. The Niki Lauda fan car and six-wheel car of Scheckter won at Anderstorp. Any chance Swedish Racing Federation can convince now Formula One that Stockholm is a destination city and bring the race back to Swedish Grand Prix back to Anderstorp?
No, I don't think so. There won't be any more Formula One in Sweden. There's, especially in Anderstorp, they have a lot of problem with the sound from the cars. So I don't think they will be allowed to drive Formula One there.
Is there interest in among the federation and public and companies to bring a major event like Formula One back to Sweden?
I don't think so.
Okay. Now, speaking of Ronnie Peterson, last February you were kind enough to introduce me to his brother Tommy, and we had a very good time. Tell us how you got to know Tommy and what is your memory of Ronnie? I
learned Tommy, I knew him since we were in the 20s. He was doing some rallying though with a Renault Gordini, and I was doing rally with a Volkswagen. That's how we got friends, I think. And I met Ronnie at some exhibitions, and he was also looking at some races in rallycross when I was driving that, so I met him there as well.
Now, this is something that I've noticed, so I want to get your take on it. First victory by a Swedish driver in Formula One came in 1959, and the first ever victory for a Finnish driver came in 1982 with Mr. Rosberg, who was born in Stockholm. Lately, your neighbor to the east has produced quite a few Grand Prix winners, but none from Sweden since Austria 78. What can be done so we have another Swedish Grand Prix winner?
That's a difficult question, I think. I'm not the man to answer that. I don't know what could be done. There must be some companies or something who has a big interest and help some young guys through the series or something like that. I'm not sure.
How do you rate this young Swedish kid who is in the Ferrari Driver Academy, Dino Beganovic? Do you think he has what it takes to get to Formula One?
Yes, he looks very talented, I think. But personally, I don't know him. I never met him, but he's also from the go-kart. And yes, he's talented, and why not? Formula 2 first and then Formula 1, who knows?
He's a very nice kid. I met him at the Imola Grand Prix and told me his girlfriend is from your hometown, Rebro. Okay, now another great Swedish motorsports legend was Björn Waldegard. Tell us about your association and friendship with him, please.
We were both driving rallycross, and I met him several times at the hotels and the paddock, and he was a very friendly and nice guy, always helpful and very polite.
Nice to hear that. Okay, we have three very good drivers from your country racing in American IndyCar Series: Felix Rosenqvist, Marcus Ericsson, who is from very near your town, Örebro, and Linus Lundqvist. Has that made IndyCar racing more popular in Sweden?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of people following IndyCar now, which wasn't before.
We have a very exciting and surprising season going on in Formula One. Your thoughts on the clash between Max and Lando in Austria? Who was at fault in your opinion?
I think it was Max. You're not allowed to change the line when you're in brake, but he did that several times to block the McLaren driver. So I think in the end he got 10 seconds, but that was after the crash.
And Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari next year, do you think he will win a championship in a red car?
No, I don't think so.
Final question. When are you coming to the wonderful world of USA?
I don't know. It's on my bucket list, but now I got a friend in Florida here beside me who I can come and visit perhaps, but I'm not sure.
You're welcome anytime. Thank you so much for this fun ride, fast ride, and all the best.
Anders, thanks for joining F1Weekly.com. Nasir?
Okay, sir. IndyCar racing has gone hybrid now, and they had a race in mid-Ohio, which I have not seen. I'm not sure if you saw that, but Pato O'Ward won the race for McLaren, so that was good. Did you see any of that action?
Oh, well, I certainly tried, Nasir. Once again, I went to the IndyCar website, checked the schedule, boom, Mid-Ohio on NBC. Ran to my television at 1:30 where the schedule said it's time to start. Turned the TV on NBC, and lo and behold, it's Chicago, it's raining, and they're big fat cars with fenders. So I'm very confused, but what can I do?
Yeah, well, they're going to Fox free to air next year, so hopefully we will have the option to see it without much confusion. And the Indy Lights race, which is now called Indy Next, was won by this Brazilian kid, first win, Caio Collet. He is managed by Nicola Todd. And there were two races for USF Pro 2000. Both of them were won by Nikita Johnson.
Hello, I'm Nikita Johnson, and I'm going to be listening to F1 Weekly.
This teenage kid from 20 minutes from where I live in Florida, he is very, very talented. We interviewed him earlier in the year, and hopefully we'll get him on the show soon. Okay, and what else happened? Okay, Formula 2. Oh, I got to talk to you about your favorite driver. The big disappointment for the crowd at DEI, and we're not talking Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. Miss Haley Deegan has lost her ride. Would you have any two pesos or Smarty Pants comments on it?
Well, once again, she just couldn't cut the mustard. But this is opportunity opening up for possibly Jamie Chadwick, who really thinks that she wants to go to IndyCar. But I think going this route pays dividends.
Well, they took her into NASCAR, into this junior series of NASCAR. And basically, I just don't understand drivers who are not winning in a junior series. Not forget winning, they're not even coming in top 10 on a regular basis, and they move up a series. I mean, you would expect something like this from Dr. Marko in the Red Bull Junior program, but then he does that to kids who have done something very impressive in some series, and then he, elevates them to a very high level, and then most of them don't succeed. This is the reason I don't like hoopla and trying to bring people from this angle, that angle, who are not even performing. And there's another girl in Indy Next whom we interviewed, I think about last year, Miss Lindsay Brewer.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Brewer. Congratulations to F1 Weekly for 1,000 podcasts.
And team released a statement that she won't be taking part anymore. Apparently the sponsorship fell through. And it was the same thing, if you want to see any result of her practice qualifying race result, she's always in the top 3 from the bottom. And I don't know what kind of people sponsor somebody like this that goes from doing nothing in one series and take them to a higher level. So that's the way it goes. And speaking of higher level, we have Formula 2, which is the final frontier before Formula 1. They were racing, of course, at Silverstone. And we have a new championship leader in Red Bull Junior, Isaac Hedjar. He finished second on the road in the feature race behind American driver Jack Crawford, who was given a 5-second penalty, so Isaac got the win and Jack got the shaft. The reason I say this, they have this penalty for anything. You catch a fly in your helmet, they'll give you a 10 seconds penalty. So Jack Crawford was trying to pass somebody, and the guy gave him no room. So he had two choices, go off-road or crash. So he took the smart move. He did not crash. And this really did not affect the race result. It was way early in the race, and they gave him a penalty. And that's why I don't like these penalties all the time in every series. And of course, I'm watching these races, Formula 2, Formula 3, and every 2 minutes, somebody under investigation. This will be investigated after the race. Very bad. So anyway, Saturday's sprint race was very exciting. Toto's new Max, the Italian Kimi, Andrea Antonelli, he won his first F2 race with authority, and he was supposed to go into Formula 3 step by step, but at the last minute, they decided to put him in Formula 2, and so far he had really struggled. But this was a very impressive when he led in changing condition from start to finish. There were yellow flags and cautions, VSC, safety car, and he kept his cool and won the race. So hopefully he will do well, and hopefully Toto will have him replace Lewis Hamilton. That would be quite a thing. Now, Formula 3, double the pleasure for another Red Bull Junior, Arvid Lindblad. Now, this is an interesting situation. First, he won both races of the weekend. Sunday's win was very impressive in changing condition. Dr. Marko said to me in our conversation that Arvid has 3 flags on his helmet. One is from India, where his mother comes from. One is from Sweden, where his papito comes from. And the third one is of England, where the family lives. And Dr. Marko said to me, well, we have requested him to select one flag. Dr. Marko is like you and I. He's old school. We understand one nationality, one flag, and whatever. But, the new generation, Max, Lando, they got their own thing going. But, to each his own. But Arvid is a very talented kid. He is 16 years old, and this is his second full year in single-seater racing. So I wish him well. And we interviewed him at Monza last year. It was very nice. And I saw him at Imola. Because of situation, I could not interview him. But he remembered me, and we did a little chat with him. So that's all nice. Okay, sir, moving on. Engine man is main man at Aston Martin. Andy Cowell, who was the brains behind the all-conquering Mercedes hybrid engine, will replace Martin Whitmarsh effective October 1 of this year as Group CEO at Aston Martin. And today news came, I think this gentleman's name is Cardile. He has resigned from Ferrari effective immediately. He's been there for like 20 years. And now he's going to be in charge of the chassis development. I believe that's the role at Aston Martin. Papa Stroll is rolling any heavy stone he can towards his team to make his little Jim Clark world champion one fine day. Who knows, he might even pay Alonso, if they have a competitive car, $500 million to just finish behind Lance so Lance can become world champion. And I have to say, I must confess, in a car 2 seconds faster than 19 other cars on the grid, Lance can become world champion. Even Mighty Max will not be able to overcome such a large deficit. But as we have seen this season, or since he has been teammate to Alonso, Lance has been lassoed by Alonso like a Laredo, Texas cowboy. After 155 Grand Prix races, it could be, I think now it's 155 or 156, which is more than 2-time world champion Emerson Fittipaldi and 3 podium finishes. It is time for Lance to head for the mountains, head for ice-cold bush, the beer, not the El Presidente from Crawford, Texas. Mr. Rogers, do you concur with me, or being the lay patriot you are, you would rather serve him Stella Artois?
Lance has been re-signed. He is the future. And not only that, but they both know they have bigger problems than drivers. They're slowly going backwards. Now they're competing with Haas. And Haas seems to be a faster car. So it's very impressive, especially with Nico Hülkenberg. Very impressive. Nico is really performing when he needs to be performing, as he has signed with Audi, and they're probably so pumped up. But no, I'm very disappointed with Aston Martin. I mean, they're trying to get more personnel. They're going to try to get Adrian Newey, but they have Honda next year, which could be good and reliable, but the package is still not up to a Mercedes or McLaren standard. And often I have to admit that the German team, Alpine, sometimes outperforms Aston Martin as well. So there you have it. And it's interesting because some people are saying that Ocon has signed and could be going over to Williams. So I don't know if you got any good news on that, but Nas, I'm always open-minded.
No, I don't have any confirmation that, one day he's going here, next day he's going there. But speaking of Haas, they are bullish on Behrman, and they have already signed Oliver Behrman for next season. So this is a very good talent. He has really impressed me a lot. This season has not gone very well for him in Formula 2, like his Prema teammate Kimi Antonelli. But I think this kid is very good. We already saw how he did in his first Formula 1 race on a late notice in Saudi Arabia. So I think future is bright for him. And Audi, I don't know. I am being told that their engine is pretty strong. It's working well. But I don't know what they're going to do with the chassis design and all that. I wonder if the people who are working there, obviously they need some new designers there or whoever they can bring in. Because if they continue with the same, then they're going to get the same result, unfortunately. So we will see how it works out. Now we come to Motorsport Mantra. As the competition catches up to Red Bull, I think we're in for some nasty weather in Formula 1 because bad moon is rising over Milton Keynes. This mantra is not about who is at fault or who is sweet innocent child. The concern is what may come down from our favorite people in a white room with dark curtains, the FIA stewards after the Red Bull ring helter-skelter. As we discussed last week, we already have an overdose of nanny state rules and regulations. We have seen 40, 50 place grid penalty when they won't even allow 22 cars on the grid, which is so ridiculous. When Hyundai first introduced cars in the US market, their advertising slogan on telly was 60 seconds of common sense. A clip of that should be sent to FIA. Do we really need a penalty for going slightly over the white line when entering the pit lane? On top of that, have a driver snitch on another, which is really pathetic. I say a little more action, a little less conversation. I propose, if I have any voice in this matter, but as a fan I do, that maybe they should reserve these silly penalties only when something affects the race result. Maybe in the top 5 or in the top 10. I mean, there's no point in giving a penalty to somebody on lap 2 of a 60-lap race just because somebody gave the guy no room and he had to go all wheels. Or even as the car goes all 4 wheels and the guy does not, goes from 4th to 2nd by that move, I really don't think there is need for any penalty. We hop on this on every weekend now. Let's hear you fuming on this.
I've given this some thought, and really, the biggest problem is, back in the day, we didn't have 4 million sensors around a racetrack with a bunch of nerds with pocket protectors looking at all the data coming in and pointing fingers for the entire afternoon. I think there's just too much data, and it's just messing the whole thing up. And we have no rules on how many sensors they can use to watch you around the track. And it's gotten completely out of control because technology has gotten completely out of control. And since we have limits in the FIA regulations on building these Formula 1 cars, we need limits on all these sensors on the track. It's gotten completely out of control. I mean, it's the first thing you see when you go to FP1, you turn the TV on, is a penalty. Here comes that instant messaging. I mean, it's awful. I find it very bewildering how a bunch of people that are fairly intelligent don't see what you and I see as a spectator.
Back in the day, VH1 used to have a program called Pop-Up Video.
My favorite.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me. You're sitting there, this will be investigated, contact between so-and-so, pit lane infraction, starting the race out of position. I mean, I was wondering, do I really need to know what the hell they will investigate unless there is something major? Something major would be, remember, I think Fisichella did twice in Malaysia when he parked his car on the formation lap, totally outside the box. Remember that?
Yep.
And the car was like sideways. Something like that I can understand. But this is like for everything, unsafe release. Man, if there is no contact, why even have this thing? It's not like races are not won in the pit lane, except for that British Grand Prix that Michael Schumacher won, which was outsmarting the hell out of everyone, but then they changed the rule. So it's just too much. They need to simplify, go back to simplicity. The only thing they really should keep from this day and age are the safety features. Otherwise, we want Dijon Prenois, we want the sound of Metro V12, and we want cutthroat competition like Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell and the Rosberg and Hamilton in 2016, so a teenager could win a race. We want all these excitements, don't you, Mr. Rogers?
Absolutely. That's why I was really disappointed with all the criticism on Max in the Norris-Max collision a couple of weeks ago, because, guys, we've been waiting for this for so long, and now you want to poo-poo it as, oh, my goodness, it's so not PC. I just want to vomit on all these stupidities, because this is Formula One, folks. Prost, Senna, machismo against machismo, Lewis, Fernando. I mean, if you want to watch nice people, try Jacques Pepin at noon on PBS.
Yeah, or Pebble Beach Golf Tournament.
Yeah, so it's gotten out of control. I don't understand, but it is part of the big PC package, just like that young lady Brewster going into NXT, not making it, getting fired. I mean, listen, these people just want on their books that they had a female driver so they look PC. And it's becoming, I think 2PC is not PC. That's my new mantra.
No, PC is lost in translation. The actual translation is BS. Yes, sir. Okay, looking forward, sir. August is when they have this Rolex reunion at Laguna Seca. Are you going?
No, sir.
But it's happening in August, right?
It is, I believe so. I think, yeah. Jensen Button will be there. They're making a big hoop-TD about it. So we'll get the Jensen Button eating a hot dog moment, and then he'll be in his former Fangio car or something, because he wants to do vintage racing as well. And he wants to go to Laguna. So, because apparently he's only driven this car at Goodwood Speed Festival. So now Jensen is doing what the rest of the upper class is, tour the Pebble Beach weekend, because I'm sure he will be at Pebble Beach as well, hanging out with...
Are you 100% sure Jensen Button will be there?
100%. I think he's already endorsed the check.
Okay, do me a favor. If you could put in a request for my media credential, because if he's there, I'll come there. And he lives in Santa Barbara, and it's hard to get to these people, but I did have a brief chat with him at the Miami Grand Prix, so hopefully he'll remember my pretty face, and I will try to see if I can get an interview, because the advantage is this: if I am in California at Laguna Seca and he says I'm not available today, then I can say, hey, you live in Santa Barbara, I'm here for a week or 10 days or whatever, can I drive down on Pacific Coast Highway and do an interview? So I can try it. I mean, I cannot guarantee he will say, yeah, sure, I have time for you and F1 Weekly in particular. So can you put in my request for media credentials, sir, please?
I will put in the request, but we have one problem, Jennifer.
That's fine, and if they say no, I'll still show up. And one good thing about most of these American tracks, that even with a regular paddock pass, which is $20 more, you can access anyone. You know what I'm saying? So I would like, and there'll be other people too. Plus, I'll get to see the host if he can come down to Santa Cruz for breakfast with me.
Exactly. So thanks, Nasir. Keep up the good work. I know you're a busy man in a busy world. So I want to thank everybody who listens. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.